In life, the most revealing truths about a person are not spoken in words but displayed through actions. Actions reveal priorities. When we pay close attention to how someone allocates their time, energy, and attention, we uncover the real values that guide their decisions. Words can be crafted to impress, excuses can be offered to justify failure, and promises can be made without follow-through, yet actions are harder to fake. Over time, patterns emerge, and these patterns are far more reliable indicators of character than any speech or explanation. A person who claims to care about personal growth, but spends hours each day scrolling mindlessly through social media is demonstrating a misalignment between their stated intentions and their actual priorities. Similarly, someone who professes love or loyalty yet fails to show up consistently for those they claim to value is exposing their true commitment, or lack thereof. Observing behavior over time allows one to distinguish between fleeting interest and genuine dedication, between performative gestures and authentic effort. In every interaction, from small choices to major life decisions, a person's focus is a reflection of what they deem important. Time is finite, energy is limited, and attention is precious. Where these resources are invested speaks louder than any explanation. For instance, a friend who repeatedly cancels plans or fails to check in is signaling that their other engagements or desires take precedence. A colleague who constantly prioritizes personal gain over collaborative success is revealing that ambition, not team integrity, drives them. Similarly, in romantic relationships, consistent actions, or the absence of them, expose intentions more clearly than words of affection or flattery ever could. Observing how someone responds under pressure or when confronted with choices that require sacrifice provides even deeper insight into their priorities. Those who make time for what truly matters, even in inconvenient circumstances, demonstrate a hierarchy of values aligned with reliability and integrity. Conversely, those who consistently defer responsibilities or ignore meaningful commitments expose where their allegiance lies. Stoic philosophy teaches that focus should be placed on what is within our control, yet it also emphasizes discernment in relationships and associations. Recognizing the alignment, or lack thereof, between claimed values and actual behavior empowers individuals to make better choices about who to trust, follow, or invest in emotionally. It becomes clear that actions are not merely responses to immediate situations. They are expressions of underlying beliefs, habits, and principles. By observing these expressions over time, one gains clarity and avoids the misleading allure of rhetoric or charm. Every missed deadline, every forgotten promise, every act of generosity or neglect contributes to a mosaic of character that is far more accurate than self-reported intentions. This cumulative pattern is unspoken yet undeniable, serving as a roadmap to understanding motives and priorities. Individuals who internalize this perspective begin to notice subtler signals where attention lingers, what is repeatedly postponed, what is consistently nurtured. These patterns offer insight into the essence of a person without requiring confrontation or interrogation. It is not about judgment, but about awareness. Actions, after all, are the purest reflection of choice, and choice is the truest indicator of what matters most. Observing where someone invests their time and energy allows one to assess alignment, integrity, and reliability, providing a foundation for informed decisions in personal, professional, and intimate spheres. In essence, to truly understand someone, one must look beyond words, beyond appearances, beyond promises, and focus instead on consistent behavior over time. It is in these choices, repeated day after day, that values are revealed, priorities are exposed, and the reality of a person's character becomes unmistakable. Respect is one of the most fundamental indicators of a person's character, and it is non-negotiable. It is not something that can be faked for appearances or invoked only in grand gestures. Rather, it is revealed in the small, often overlooked moments of daily life. The way someone interacts with those who cannot benefit them. Service staff, colleagues in minor roles, strangers in passing, reveals far more about their integrity than their treatment of those who can advance their own interests. Respect manifests not only in speech but also in tone, attention, patience, and consideration. A person who consistently interrupts, dismisses, or belittles others is exposing a lack of empathy and humility, signaling a worldview centered more on self-interest than on shared humanity. True respect does not fluctuate based on convenience or circumstance. It is a steady principle that guides behavior regardless of audience, mood, or reward. Observing how someone responds in challenging moments when tired, stressed, or inconvenienced offers an unfiltered look at their values. Someone may perform politeness when it is easy and socially expected, but when pushed to the margins, their real approach emerges. Stoic philosophy teaches the value of virtue and integrity as the highest goods, emphasizing that external circumstances should not compromise moral conduct. When a person adheres to a standard of respect consistently, it reflects a strength of character rooted in self-discipline, awareness, and empathy. Conversely, the absence of respect is corrosive, eroding trust, collaboration, and meaningful connection. It is often in minor acts, speaking over someone in a meeting, ignoring a request for help, making sarcastic or dismissive remarks, that the lack of respect reveals itself, and these small moments accumulate over time into patterns that are impossible to overlook. Respect is not a currency to be spent selectively. It is an expectation embedded in all interactions, signaling the value placed on others as human beings, not merely on their utility or status. Those who fail to recognize this often mistake charm with our superficial accomplishments as sufficient markers of worth, yet without respect, no achievement can compensate for the harm done to relationships and reputation. Observing respect, or the lack thereof, allows one to distinguish between individuals who are genuinely principled and those who are performative. It is through these repeated demonstrations that character is validated. Respect also encompasses boundaries. Acknowledging and honoring them, even when inconvenient, reflects consideration and moral clarity. It requires listening without judgment, responding without condescension, and engaging with patience even when the other person does not meet one's expectations. Furthermore, respect is inherently linked to accountability. Those who take responsibility for their actions and apologize when wrong demonstrate an awareness of impact, which is a cornerstone of ethical conduct. A person who refuses to recognize mistakes or shifts blame consistently undermines the principle of respect and reveals a lack of maturity. In relationships, both personal and professional, the presence or absence of respect sets the tone for trust, loyalty, and long-term harmony. It is non-negotiable because without it, no dynamic can be healthy or sustainable. Recognizing this allows one to make conscious decisions about where to invest time, energy, and emotional labor. It is a compass for discerning character and compatibility, cutting through superficial impressions and focusing on fundamental principles. Respect is a mirror that reflects internal values outwardly. It is demonstrated in consistent action, speech, attention to others, and ethical behavior. By observing how respect is given and received, one gains insight into integrity, empathy, and reliability. In essence, respect is not optional or situational. It is the baseline from which character is measured, revealed not in grand declarations, but in the accumulation of small, meaningful interactions that collectively define a person's moral fabric. Consistency is one of the most reliable measures of a person's true character, and it outweighs anything that can be said in words. People often speak of intentions, promises, or plans, but words alone are easily manipulated, forgotten, or exaggerated. Anyone can articulate ideals or claim values, but without repeated, reliable action, those statements remain hollow. Consistency, on the other hand, cannot be faked for long. It is revealed through patterns of behavior over time, through decisions made when no one is watching, and through the alignment of actions with claimed principles. Observing someone's behavior consistently provides clarity about who they truly are, beyond appearances or rhetorical skill. For instance, someone may profess generosity, loyalty, or patience, but if their daily choices contradict these declarations, if they fail to support friends, shirk responsibilities, or respond with impatience under stress, their words are revealed as unreliable. This does not imply that occasional mistakes or lapses define a person, but rather that the pattern of repeated behavior reflects their genuine priorities and values. Consistency also builds trust, because predictability in action allows others to understand what to expect. When actions consistently align with words, reliability and credibility are established in relationships, whether personal, professional, or romantic, are strengthened. Conversely, inconsistency breeds doubt and uncertainty. When someone says one thing but does another, it creates cognitive dissonance in those around them, eroding confidence and fostering suspicion. This pattern is particularly visible in situations that require effort, sacrifice, or moral courage. It is easy to speak of kindness when circumstances are favorable or when recognition is guaranteed. But the true test comes when action requires discomfort, restraint, or delay of gratification. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that virtue is demonstrated through habitual practice rather than verbal declaration. By observing repeated behavior, one can discern whether a person is guided by principle or by impulse, whether their moral compass is steady or easily swayed by circumstance. Consistency also extends to emotional responses. A person who reacts predictably, reasonably, and proportionally to challenges demonstrates control, maturity, and self-awareness. In contrast, erratic or unpredictable emotional behavior signals instability and unreliability. These patterns, when examined over time, reveal much more than any singular act or statement ever could. Furthermore, consistent behavior communicates priorities without the need for explanation. The choices someone makes day after day, how they spend their time, what they value, and how they respond to opportunities and challenges illustrate what matters most to them. Words can be persuasive, appealing, or even charming, but actions consistently repeated over weeks, months, and years form a visible narrative that cannot be ignored. This is why discerning individuals pay attention to the long-term record of someone's behavior rather than the rhetoric that accompanies it. Consistency is also a measure of integrity. It demonstrates that a person's internal values are aligned with external behavior, that they do not merely perform for recognition or approval, but act according to principle. It builds credibility and invites respect because others can rely on the predictability of their conduct. The absence of consistency, on the other hand, signals a gap between intention and execution, suggesting that what is said is more about image than reality. Ultimately, observing behavior over time provides a truer picture of someone's character than listening to what they claim to be. The accumulation of repeated actions, choices, and responses paints a portrait of authenticity, revealing values, priorities, and reliability in a way that words alone never can. It is through this lens of consistency that one can truly understand a person, evaluate trustworthiness, and make informed decisions about relationships, partnerships, and influence. Energy is one of the most telling indicators of intention, far more revealing than spoken words or superficial gestures. Where someone invests their attention, focus, and effort exposes what truly matters to them, and observing this allocation provides insight into priorities, values, and motivations. Human energy is finite. No one can devote themselves fully to everything at once. The choices people make about where to direct their effort reveal a hierarchy of importance that often contradicts what they claim verbally. For instance, a person may speak of ambition, growth, or connection, yet if their daily engagement is consumed by distractions, trivial pursuits, or shallow interactions, the reality of their priorities becomes clear. Energy is not just physical. It encompasses mental focus, emotional investment, and the quality of attention given to tasks, relationships, and responsibilities. When someone approaches an endeavor with consistent, deliberate energy, it signals that the activity aligns with their intentions and values. Conversely, scattered, inconsistent, or half-hearted engagement indicates a lack of genuine commitment or clarity of purpose. In relationships, energy is a particularly potent signal. The people who matter to someone are those who receive attention without effort being asked, whose needs are anticipated, whose presence is prioritized, and whose growth is supported. Conversely, when attention is only offered conditionally or sporadically, it communicates indifference, distraction, or misaligned priorities. Stoic philosophy teaches that focus and deliberate action are expressions of virtue and self-mastery. To observe where energy is directed is to witness the manifestation of intentional living. Those who act with consistent energy in alignment with their values demonstrate a coherence between thought and deed. They are guided not by impulse or external expectation, but by internal clarity. Attention is a form of currency, and energy is the expenditure of that currency. Every choice to engage, to contribute, or to focus represents an investment, and repeated investments reveal patterns that words cannot. For example, someone who claims to value learning but never dedicates time to reading, reflection, or skill development is revealing the gap between stated intention and actual priority. Similarly, someone who claims loyalty but consistently fails to invest time, thought, or effort into relationships exposes where their real attention lies. Observing energy allocation also reveals resilience and determination. Challenges, obstacles, and competing demands often force choices, and where energy is preserved or redirected in these moments indicates what is genuinely important. Those who expend energy on growth, integrity, and meaningful connection demonstrate intentionality and self-awareness, whereas those who squander energy on superficial or unaligned pursuits signal misdirected focus. Energy also reflects authenticity. People cannot maintain false engagement over time without strain. Repeated patterns of focus and effort naturally reveal genuine interest and care. Emotional energy, in particular, cannot be feigned indefinitely. When someone is genuinely invested, it shows in consistency of presence, attentiveness, and responsiveness. Conversely, low or erratic engagement exposes disinterest or self-centered priorities. By observing energy flow, what is nurtured, what is ignored, where effort is concentrated, one gains a profound understanding of intention without requiring explanation or justification. It becomes possible to distinguish between those who act from principle and those who act from convenience, between genuine commitment and performative involvement. In every domain of life, energy allocation acts as a mirror of inner priorities, intentions, and values. Actions, time spent, emotional investment, and mental focus collectively communicate what a person holds dear, often more loudly and accurately than words ever could. Energy reveals intention not as a fleeting signal, but as a sustained pattern, a living indicator of what matters, what motivates, and what drives choices, creating clarity about the alignment between what is said and what is truly valued. Emotional responsibilities is one of the most crucial indicators of maturity and character, and it is revealed in how a person handles conflict, criticism, and challenging situations. Words can be rehearsed, apologies can be offered superficially, and promises can be made, but the true measure of emotional responsibility emerges in the consistency of response under pressure. When someone demonstrates the ability to acknowledge their own emotions, reflect before reacting, and take ownership of their behavior, it shows self-awareness, discipline, and integrity. Conversely, individuals who consistently react impulsively, blame others, or externalize responsibility reveal a lack of emotional grounding. Stoic philosophy teaches that we do not control external events, but we do control our perception, judgment, and reaction. This principle becomes particularly relevant in interpersonal interactions. The person who maintains composure during conflict, who listens attentively without immediate judgment or defensiveness, and who responds with thoughtful consideration exhibits emotional responsibility. Such behavior indicates an understanding that emotional impulses, if unchecked, can lead to destructive consequences and erode relationships, trust, and credibility. Emotional responsibility is also revealed in how one handles criticism. Those anchored in self-awareness view critique as an opportunity for reflection and growth, even when it is uncomfortable or delivered imperfectly. They are able to separate their sense of self-worth from external feedback, absorbing useful insights while discarding irrelevant negativity. In contrast, individuals who respond to criticism with defensiveness, hostility, or passive aggression demonstrate a reliance on ego and a lack of self-regulation. These reactions reveal underlying insecurity and a pattern of reactive behavior rather than intentional action. Furthermore, emotional responsibility involves the capacity to recognize and manage the impact of one's behavior on others. A person may feel anger, frustration, or disappointment, but choosing to respond constructively rather than destructively shows a commitment to integrity and relational stability. This self-regulation is not about suppressing emotion, but about directing it thoughtfully, in alignment with values and long-term objectives. Those who avoid accountability, manipulate emotions, or deflect responsibility create cycles of misunderstanding, tension, and erosion of trust. Observing patterns of emotional response over time provides clarity about an individual's true character. It reveals whether they operate from awareness and principle or from reactive impulses shaped by circumstance and immediate feelings. In personal, professional, and social contexts, emotional responsibility influences outcomes more than intelligence, charm, or rhetorical skill, because uncontrolled emotion has the power to undermine relationships, decisions, and credibility in profound ways. Emotional responsibility also fosters resilience. Individuals who manage their emotions effectively are able to navigate adversity with composure, learn from mistakes, and maintain constructive interactions even in challenging circumstances. Their stability provides a foundation for trust, collaboration, and mutual respect. Conversely, those who allow emotional reactivity to dictate behavior create unpredictability, strain, and instability, signaling that engagement with them may require disproportionate energy or risk. Self-awareness, reflection, and the ability to regulate responses are therefore essential components of emotional responsibility. They enable a person to act intentionally rather than react impulsively, to maintain perspective in the face of challenge, and to foster environments of respect and understanding. By observing how someone consistently navigates criticism, conflict, and emotional tension, one gains insight into their inner resources, priorities, and maturity. Emotional responsibility is not demonstrated in isolated moments, but in the accumulation of behaviors and choices over time. It is revealed in the subtle, repeated ways a person responds under pressure, handles disagreement, and maintains composure when expectations are unmet. The capacity to manage emotion, take ownership of one's actions, and respond thoughtfully is a living testament to character, self-mastery, and reliability, providing clarity about whether someone operates from self-awareness or reactive impulses. Emotional responsibility is a defining feature of maturity, and it is most clearly revealed in how someone handles conflict, criticism, and emotionally charged situations. While anyone can speak of patience, understanding, or self-control, true emotional responsibility manifests in consistent behavior over time, particularly when circumstances are challenging. Words alone are unreliable. They can be rehearsed, exaggerated, or offered to appease others, but actions in moments of tension reveal the reality of a person's emotional character. Those who are anchored in self-awareness recognize that their reactions are their own responsibility. They understand that external events, provocations, or criticisms are not what define their responses. Rather, it is their perception, judgment, and choice of action that matter. Stoic philosophy emphasizes this distinction between what is within one's control and what is not. An emotional responsibility is the practical application of that principle. People who demonstrate emotional responsibility do not allow frustration, anger, or disappointment to dictate behavior. When confronted with conflict, they pause, reflect, and respond with consideration rather than impulsively lashing out or withdrawing. They understand that reacting purely from impulse often exacerbates the situation, damages relationships, and undermines trust. Similarly, when faced with criticism, emotionally responsible individuals listen carefully, process the information, and determine what is useful for growth while discarding what is irrelevant or unfair. They do not take critique personally in a destructive sense, nor do they deflect blame on others to protect ego. Instead, they own their mistakes, acknowledge missteps, and seek constructive solutions. In contrast, those lacking emotional responsibility often operate from reactive impulses. They may respond defensively, escalate conflicts unnecessarily, or externalize blame to avoid discomfort. Their behavior is governed more by transient emotions than by principle, leading to repeated cycles of tension and instability. Observing these patterns over time provides a clear picture of character. Emotional responsibility also encompasses the capacity to recognize the impact of one's actions and words on others. It is not merely about controlling personal emotions, but about engaging in ways that minimize harm, maintain dignity, and foster trust. Individuals who act without consideration of consequences, even when justified in their feelings, reveal a lack of empathy and awareness, which undermines the stability of any interaction or relationship. Moreover, emotional responsibility contributes to resilience. Those who manage their emotions effectively are better equipped to navigate setbacks, disagreements, and criticism without being derailed. Their composure allows them to maintain perspective, make thoughtful decisions, and continue productive engagement even under pressure. By contrast, emotionally reactive individuals often magnify difficulties, escalate conflicts, and create unnecessary tension, signaling instability and unpredictability. Patterns of response, rather than isolated incidents, are the true measure of emotional responsibility. Someone may act appropriately in one situation but fail consistently in others, And it is the accumulation of behavior over time that reveals whether self-awareness or impulsive reaction predominates. Furthermore, emotionally responsible individuals recognize that growth and learning require reflection. They actively seek feedback, consider alternative perspectives, and adjust behavior without defensiveness or resentment. They see conflict and criticism not as threats, but as opportunities to refine judgment, deepen understanding, and strengthen relationships. In essence, emotional responsibility is a reflection of internal mastery. It demonstrates that a person is guided by awareness, principle, and intentionality rather than by transient emotions or external pressures. It is revealed in calm responses during confrontation, thoughtful consideration of criticism, ownership of mistakes, and consistent, measured behavior under stress. Observing someone's approach to emotionally charged situations over time provides clarity about their character, revealing whether they are grounded in self-awareness or governed by reactive impulses. Boundaries are among the clearest indicators of maturity, self-respect, and the capacity for healthy relationships. They are not arbitrary rules or rigid walls. They are signals that communicate values, priorities, and limits of engagement. Observing how a person establishes and respects boundaries, both their own and those of others, reveals much about their character, reliability, and long-term intentions. A person who consistently respects the limits of others demonstrates empathy, self-awareness, and understanding that every individual has a right to personal space, emotional safety, and autonomy. Conversely, someone who frequently disregards or oversteps boundaries exhibits impulsivity, entitlement, or a lack of consideration, signaling potential difficulties in trust, collaboration, and intimacy. Boundaries begin with self-awareness. Those who understand their own limits, emotional, physical, and mental, are better equipped to interact constructively with others. They recognize what they can give when they need to step back and how to protect their energy without causing harm. Setting clear personal boundaries communicates responsibility, self-respect, and a recognition that one cannot be everything for everyone at all times. This clarity allows for sustainable engagement and prevents burnout, resentment, and confusion. Equally important is how someone responds to the boundaries of others. Respecting another person's limits, whether it is time, space, opinion, or emotional capacity, demonstrates humility and social intelligence. A person who consistently ignores requests for space, dismisses discomfort, or pressures others to conform to their desires reveals a lack of empathy and an inability to maintain equitable relationships. Such behavior often signals immaturity and unreliability as it prioritizes personal wants over mutual respect and ethical conduct. Stoic philosophy emphasizes understanding what is within one's control and approaching interactions with rationality and integrity. Boundaries function as a practical application of this principle. By recognizing limits, both personal and external, individuals exercise control over their own actions while honoring the autonomy of others. This approach fosters trust, cooperation, and a stable foundation for long-term relationships. Boundaries are also revealed in consistent behavior over time. Someone may occasionally respect limits due to convenience or social expectation, but a pattern of repeated attention to boundaries reflects genuine maturity. They consistently communicate needs, enforce limits without aggression, and honor the boundaries communicated by others without resentment. In contrast, inconsistent or selective respect for boundaries indicates volatility, self-centeredness, or a lack of foresight. Beyond interpersonal relationships, boundaries also signal a person's approach to responsibility and accountability. Those who set and adhere to boundaries demonstrate reliability, as they are aware of their commitments and do not overextend themselves in ways that compromise integrity or performance. They are able to maintain focus, meet expectations, and engage meaningfully without sacrificing personal or collective well-being. Ignoring boundaries, on the other hand, often leads to chaos, unmet expectations, and strained relationships as there is no clear framework for mutual respect and sustainable interaction. Emotional boundaries are particularly revealing, as they indicate how someone manages vulnerability, intimacy, and conflict. A person who communicates limits regarding emotional engagement while respecting others' emotional space shows emotional intelligence, restraint, and foresight. They understand that overstepping can lead to harm, resentment, or imbalance, and they act intentionally to prevent such outcomes. Observing the way someone navigates boundaries over time, how they respond to requests, enforce limits, and adapt to changing circumstances offers insight into reliability, maturity, and the likelihood of sustainable collaboration. Boundaries are signals not merely of preference but of principle. They reveal a person's understanding of autonomy, respect, and ethical engagement. They are expressed through consistent action, clear communication, and attentive responsiveness to the limits of self and others. By paying attention to these signals, one can discern maturity, predict reliability, and assess the quality of connection that is possible in personal, professional, and social interactions